Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A little while ago, I ran into this article from Wired that says EV makers think they figured out what women want. And this was talking about how buyers of electric cars tend to be predominantly men. And then did some digging around. I found out that this is a thing that people have known for a long time. And there's an article in Clean Technica about it, and an article in Jalopnik about it. And basically, this was surprising to them that women were not as interested in EVs as men are, because for a long time they thought that women would be the one to adopt it. Women adopted the Prius, more than men did when that first came out. And it's known that in the early 1900s, when there were electric cars, back then, the vast majority of electric cars in the early 1900s were driven by women, and women preferred them because they were like less noisy and less dirty. They didn't have to hand crank the engine, which was hard to do. And even though they were much more expensive, women preferred the electric cars back then. Eventually, gas cars won out because they were much cheaper, like a third to half the price. They had more range and more power. And then when the electric starter was invented and you didn't have to hand crank the gas motors anymore, then everyone just kind of went over to internal combustion cars. But also, when they do surveys, women care more about fuel economy than men do, and women are more environmentally conscious than men. So it kind of seemed like EVs and women buyers would be a natural fit. However, these articles all say that only a third of the electric car buyers are women and two-thirds are men. And they were trying to figure out why that would be. And some of the reasons that they were sending out there was like it's a novelty and it's thought as sort of a risky, it's sort of seen as more risky and less safe to buy an EV. People worry about being stranded. And having range anxiety. So, and women were more worried about being stranded, and they didn't like the technical part of it because it's EVs are kind of like a computer on wheels. So, that women weren't in general as interested in the tech component of it. So I don't know exactly what that is, but what I did realize was interesting is that on our own channel, if you look at the audience demographic of our Aptera channel, it is even more skewed. The male-female skew is 96.3% of you guys are male, and 3.7 of you guys percent of you guys are female. So in the EV world in general, it would be like 66-33, but here we're like 96-3. So this is even more of a gender disparity when it comes to the Aptera, and I don't know exactly why that is. It seems like most of the guys in the comments are kind of older to middle-aged men that come from technical backgrounds. And when they look at EV buyers now, it is generally middle-aged men that are higher income and more highly educated and tend to come from more technical backgrounds that are the first adopters of these EVs. And so that seems to be the same case with Aptera, except that it's even more so. It's even more that to the nth degree. So I was just thought it was a very interesting article when I read it, and I wanted to hear you guys' thoughts about why this is. Especially, I'd like to hear from the women that are watching this. Like, why is it that women are less interested in the Aptera or EVs in general? Now, in my own personal experience, this was my first EV back in I think 2013, 2012. We got the first Nissan Leaf, and it was exactly this color, and it looked like this. Um, Admittedly, it's kind of a funny looking car. Kind of reminds me of a frog. And I remember when I brought this home, my wife was like, "Why do we have to buy such weird things? Why can't we buy like a normal, regular car like everyone else?" And she thought that it would be a major hassle and it's just not practical and it would be hard to drive and hard to use. But then after about 1 week of driving this around, she was like, "Okay, this is my car." So she wanted the Leaf, and I got to drive the gas car around because she much preferred that this was easier, and she doesn't like to go to the gas station, and so that was a major hassle. And this, you never have to go to the gas station. You just pull it into the garage and you just plug it in. It was super easy, very quiet, very torquey and silent, and it was super easy to use. So quickly she realized she liked it. So I think maybe some of it is like um, it's kind of a little unfamiliar. So some people don't like the unfamiliarity and they want to go back to what's what they're used to. But I think if people try it, they'll like it. And I think that's the same of Aptera. It just looks a little weird and it's completely different. So it's like an EV, but like the far end of the EV, which is super weird and very different. But I think when people try it, they're gonna love it. Okay, well, I'd like to hear your comments on why you think that this gender gap exists in the EV and why it's even more pronounced in the Aptera world. I don't know if this is in line with um, the reservations for the Aptera, the actual customer base of the Aptera, but I suspect that that is the case, that it's mostly men. If you look at the Aptera forum on their own website, that is almost all men on there as well. Um, and there is definitely a big skew in the gender here. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hopefully that was somewhat interesting. Thanks as always to our supporting members, and have a great day, everyone.